Welcome to Reddit After Hours. This is r/am I the butthole, where OP threatens to sue her ex-best friend for taking her spot on vacation, not paying her back, and trying to seduce her boyfriend. Our first Reddit post is from Professional Cry 1342, titled, "Am I the butthole for refusing to help my dad's ex-wife with rent after his passing, even though she is struggling and my half-brother is still a minor?" So here's the situation. My dad passed away 3.5 years ago when my half-brother was 11 years old. My dad and his ex-wife had been separated for about 5 years before his passing, but they weren't legally divorced. During that time, they didn't really have much contact and she didn't join any family gatherings or events. Even during the funeral, she wasn't even there where my aunt, my grandma, and I were, and I didn't have a close relationship with her at all. My dad was also struggling financially, and he didn't leave anything behind apart from a small boat that he had purchased in my name, which I sold and put the money aside for my brother's future, and started paying towards his needs such as education fees and monthly allowances for him. My dad had still been supporting my half-brother's mom financially though, even though they weren't living together, and I only had to communicate with her a few times after his passing about my brother's expenses. Here's where things get tricky. My aunt has been paying the rent for my dad's ex-wife and my half-brother for the past 3.5 years, as my dad's ex-wife claims to be struggling financially. She does work full-time, and she also receives a pension through my dad. Now, the landlord wants them to move out, and my aunt has been helping with rent all this time, but is not in a position to pay for the rent in the future apartment. My dad's ex-wife is now asking me for help with the rent, claiming that she's still struggling. I'm honestly conflicted. I don't have a strong relationship with her, and I don't feel it's my responsibility to help her out with rent, especially when I'm already helping my brother. I've made it clear that I can't help her with rent, but she's persistent and threatening to tell my brother that I'm this bad sister who is not helping him out with their housing situation, and she told me that if I'm not helping her out with rent, that I shouldn't act like a good sister and help out on anything else as well. I feel like it's not fair that I should take on this burden when I'm already looking out for my brother's well-being, and especially when my aunt has already been helping her all this time. My primary focus is on my brother's future, and I just don't want to take on any more responsibilities that aren't my own. I also want to mention that while my dad financially supported my dad's ex-wife when they were separated, their relationship was strained, and I never felt close to her. I'm struggling with whether I'm being unreasonable for not helping her, even though she's in a tough situation. So, am I the butthole for not wanting to help her out with rent, even though she's claiming that she's struggling? And then we have a couple updates from OP. Thank you everyone for supporting my decision. I'm overwhelmed by the support that I've received. I just want to provide a bit more context about the countries involved without going into too much detail. I'm originally from a Middle Eastern country and moved to Europe a couple of years ago to work under better conditions. My brother and his mom still live in my home country. Things have been tough there, just like everywhere else, and she is not the only one struggling. In our culture, families help each other out. However, even though my family loves my brother and has done everything to support him, we feel like she's using us at this point through him, and I don't want to give in to her manipulation. My mom was a single parent who worked 2 jobs to provide me with housing and all my needs until I was able to provide for myself, so her attitude is really frustrating me even more because of this. As some of you suggested, I don't want to help her with budget planning or finding a new apartment because I'm afraid that if I help her even a little bit, she'll keep asking for more. I also think that she wants to maintain an expensive lifestyle. She isn't into drugs or gambling as far as I know, but she does spend a lot on luxury cosmetics, branded clothes, and even some Botox and similar treatments. Regarding my brother coming to live with me, it would be very complicated due to the visa processes. But if things do get worse, I will do everything in my power to arrange that. I told her that life is tough for everyone. I'm in no position to pay rent, and I'm not going to send her any money from my brother's account for her rent because he will need it more in the future. It's her responsibility to find somewhere to live within her budget. I also told her that I don't want her to contact me ever again about anything related to this topic, as I don't believe that any of this is my responsibility to help her. She was shameless enough to say that she doesn't want the full rent, just my share that I, quote, had to support for my brother's sake. I will send my brother a text message in a couple of days letting him know that I love him and that I'm always here for him and that he can reach out to me personally whenever he wants. I'm also considering giving him a debit card. She has until the end of the month to leave her current apartment, and I'm kind of waiting to see how things unfold. Then OP posts an update about talking with her half-brother. Over the weekend, I realized that I was blocked on socials by the ex-wife, and also my brother removed me as well. I reached out to my brother directly because I wanted to make sure that he knew that none of this was his fault and that I will always be there for him. I didn't want to say anything that could damage his relationship with his mother, though, but I needed him to know that I did nothing against him and that he can always reach out to me. To my relief, he responded right away and reassured me that he has no hard feelings towards me at all. He already knew that a lot of what my mom has told him wasn't true and even said that he was actually happy about the decision that I made. He told me that if he were in my position, he would have done the same exact thing. One of the most upsetting parts about this conversation was when he admitted that he never liked asking me for money through his mom because it made him feel like a beggar, but she always insisted on it. He also told me that she had been looking for an apartment way beyond her budget and had been trying to collect money from different people to afford it, which confirmed my suspicions. I also learned that now they did find an apartment within whatever budget she has. What really broke my heart was when he said that he needed to delete our messages because his mom sometimes checks his phone, and if she found out that we talked, she would be very upset with him. It made me realize just how much control she has over him. I reassured him that the money that I was sending for him is still his and kept safely with me, and that whenever he needs anything, I will find a way to help him, but it won't be through his mom anymore. He understood and he seemed relieved. He also told me that he's already thinking about his future carefully and wants to choose a profession where he can be financially independent, so he never has to worry about money. Honestly, I was happily surprised by how mature and self-aware he is for a 15-year-old. Despite everything, he's handling the situation with so much understanding and perspective, and it makes me even prouder to be his sister. For now, I will keep in touch with him privately and make sure that he knows that he's not alone. I told him that when he grows up, I'll be there to support him, especially for things like university. He knows that no matter what happens, I will always have his back. OP, you are such a good big sister. 99% of people in this world wouldn't even consider selling the one thing that their dad left them after they passed and putting that money into an account so that their brother could have money for university and an allowance. That is so sweet of you. And your stepmother sounds like an absolute butthole. How much of a terrible person do you have to be that you're upset that your son is contacting their sibling? That's awful. And plus, not even the fact that you said your mom worked 2 jobs to support you. She's getting basically 2 incomes from 2 separate jobs because she's getting your dad's pension and she's working full time. She's not struggling. She's trying to live well beyond her means at the detriment of your brother, and that's really sad. But good on you for not feeding into her BS. Our next Reddit post comes from R4BB1T20, titled, "Would I be the butthole if I went to small claims court over a coworker's refusal to honor an agreement to pay back the cost for taking my spot on a vacation, but only because of her behavior on said trip? My boyfriend, his parents, his siblings, and my uncles were supposed to go on vacation together. My job ended up rescinding my time off, but the tickets were non-refundable. After we asked everyone that we knew, the only person who could go was one of our nice enough coworkers, Mary. She agreed to pay my boyfriend and his parents multiple times on the trip and beforehand, and we said that there was no rush and we would let her know when to send the money. Initially, we just didn't want the ticket to go to waste, thinking that it would be like a gift that we wouldn't mind eating the cost on. Unfortunately, Mary turned out to be a massive embarrassment to everyone over the course of the vacation. The last straw being that she got insanely drunk and confessed that she actually hated me. She loved my boyfriend and tried to kiss him, and then threw up on their room's floor before passing out. When my boyfriend and his family finally got home, they all took about a week to decompress. Mary sent progressively more passive aggressive texts to my boyfriend about not responding to her small talk messages and pretending as if nothing had happened, which he also ignored. And yesterday night, when he finally had enough, he asked her to just pay him back for the ticket and leave him alone as neutrally as he could. This morning, she responded that she only offered to pay when he was, quote, being nice, and now that he was punishing her for, quote, having an accident over catching feelings for him, she didn't need to give him anything. My boyfriend hasn't responded and just wants to ghost her. Now, I felt a bit responsible for this since the only reason she ended up having to go in the first place was because of me, so I said that I could handle messaging her from now on. My boyfriend didn't want me to have to deal with her either, though, which is fair. Here's where I might be the butthole, though. Instead of just burying the issue, I think, even though it will suck, we could take the issue to small claims court to get the money from her. She did text my boyfriend and spoke to him and the family and admitted again that she did agree to pay. My boyfriend's mom is on my side, though, saying it was way too much money to let it slide. Over $1,000 if we're being exact. My boyfriend and his dad understand where we're coming from, but they don't want to go to court over it because they think it'll take forever and it isn't worth seeing her again, and that it might damage her reputation or credit more than necessary. I know it'll take a while, but if her behavior had been typical, I would have never cared in the first place, and honestly, I could care less about her reputation. So, would I be the butthole if I took her to small claims court because of everything? OP, the fundamental question is, did she accept the ticket and did she agree to pay, and is she refusing to now pay? You have written proof from her that she agreed to pay and that she accepted the ticket under the condition and the expectation that she will pay, and now she's refusing. So on a fundamental level and a legal level, no, you are completely in the right by taking her to court to get the money that you're owed. On a basic moral level, who in the world just accepts a vacation from someone that they hate? Like, she must have just had this master plan, like, oh, I'm going to accept this vacation, I'm going to go on vacation, I'm going to steal this girl's boyfriend that I hate, and him and I are going to fall in love and live happily ever after and rub it in her face. Like, who does that? She's a grunt and she deserves whatever is coming to her, OP. Our next Reddit post comes from Doming Baba, titled, Am I the butthole for finally telling my brother-in-law to leave after he's been mooching off us for a year? Am I the butthole for finally telling my brother-in-law to leave after he's been mooching off us for a year? He moved in saying that he just, quote, needed a few months until he was able to save enough money to rent his own place. It's been a year, but he's never once paid for bills, groceries, nothing. He doesn't even do basic chores. But my wife, she's his brother, always tries to cover for him and does his chores for him instead. He leaves dishes in the sink, doesn't take out the trash, and just sits around on his phone when he's at home to play mobile games or goes out on his motorcycle to go on long rides with his buddies. We've been biting our tongues because he's family, but last week was the last straw. He came home late, parked his bike, and didn't lock the gate. As a result of his neglect, our dog of 12 years got out. We searched everywhere and even made Facebook posts only to find a few hours later that he got hit by a car just outside our subdivision. We were devastated and I was very furious. But guess who was the one acting pissed off? My brother-in-law, saying that it, quote, wasn't his fault and saying that things happen and he would just buy us a new dog. He hasn't even contributed a single cent to our monthly electric bill or internet bills. How can he afford to get us a dog? I absolutely lost it. I told him to pack his stuff and get out. My wife thinks I was being too harsh, but I honestly don't care anymore. He doesn't respect our home, our rules, or even our dog. Am I the butthole for not considering my wife's feelings first? A part of me feels that we should have talked about this first, but then I acted on my own out of anger. Am I the butthole? OP, one thing to consider is that, this is a shared home between both of you. If one of you has a problem with someone, then that person shouldn't be allowed over, at least in my opinion. Like, for example, one of my brothers ended up being a complete butthole to my wife out of nowhere for no reason. So I told him, hey, he asked to come over one day, and I told him, hey, until you figure things out with her and you guys can like talk it out, like it's her house too, and she doesn't deserve to feel uncomfortable or violated in her own house. So, until you guys figure things out, we can go get coffee, we can hang out, I can go to your house, but you can't come here until you figure it out. And I think that's a respectful thing to do in a marriage. Secondly, if someone, and I actually had a roommate do this in college, let my animal out of the house and they ended up, the worst case scenario, ended up dying, it wouldn't even be a conversation. They would be out of my house that instant, and I would probably beat the living stuffing out of them before kicking them out. An animal, especially of 12 years, is like a little family member. You can't just buy a new dog and replace a family member like that. I'm so sorry you had to go through that, OP, and I'm so sorry you lost your little buddy. But yeah, absolutely not the butthole. I would have done the same exact thing. Our next Reddit post comes from Working Farm 3460, titled, "Am I the butthole for avoiding my mom after she told me to, quote, suck it up when I broke my fingers?" I was at the gym where a heavy weight fell onto 3 of my fingers on my left hand. I was in such severe pain that I thought I was going to pass out. While sobbing, I called my mom as I'm in college and very far away from home. I told her that I thought I broke my fingers and that I wanted to go to the urgent care. My mom has never been empathetic for physical injuries or mental health issues. When she heard me, she told me to suck it up and rest. I figured I would wait a while because who knows, maybe she's right. And edit, I feel I should mention that my fingers did not look deformed, so other than bruising and the swelling, I was kinda unsure if they were broken or not. While waiting, my roommate came home and saw the state that I was in. She took one look at my hand and assured me that we had to go to the urgent care. I didn't want to betray my mom because she always said to never go to the ER or urgent care due to our, quote, terrible insurance. However, I went and researched the cost of an out-of-pocket x-ray at the nearest urgent care, and it was only about $200, which I was willing to pay myself. I told my mom this, and she said, "You better hope your fingers are broken, or else I'm not helping you pay for anything." So I was under a weird circumstance where I kind of hoped my fingers were broken for the sake of saying "I told you so" to my mom. I finally went to urgent care and got an x-ray. They confirmed both my pointer finger and middle finger were broken and may need surgery if not healed properly. When I called my mom back later that day and told her the news, she basically laughed and told me that I should be glad that they were broken. 3 weeks have gone by and I have not spoken to her since. She's texted me asking for updates on my fingers, but I feel conflicted on why she's suddenly acting like she cares when she clearly didn't in the first place. She's also not someone you can easily share your feelings with, so I'm not sure how to go about our next conversation. Should I ignore it or just try to bring it up with her? I really can't imagine caring so little about my son's well-being that I would put money over his possibly broken bones. Like, I get it. Finances are tough and everyone's situation is different. But, if I had to, I would just, pick up hours driving Lyft or Uber or something if I really couldn't afford or I needed extra money to care for my son's medical attention. And not to mention that you're in college. Like, I get that the insurance might not cover everything, but like, why is your mom worried about the money? Because, if you can't afford to pay it, a creditor is going to come after you, not her. So I don't know, OP. The fact that she's so concerned about money over your personal well-being is very telling to me, at least. As far as bringing it up with her, I mean, you can try. Worst case scenario, she acts like she always acts and she doesn't care. And then you just kind of decide how you want to proceed from there. Maybe you just start being a little less emotionally involved with her since, she's not going to care anyway. I'm not saying cut her off or anything. That's a decision you got to make, but for what it's worth, it's always worth giving her a shot and trying to have that conversation with her. Our next Reddit post comes from Impressive Chipmunk 84, titled, "Would I be the butthole if I refuse to help my dad while he recovers from a heart surgery after what he threatened me with?" I have a father who has had a big problem with alcohol. He has messed up my and my little brother's childhood and now also has health problems because of his lifestyle. 2 weeks ago, he was hospitalized, and a week ago, he had surgery. When he was in the hospital, he told me that after the operation, he will be in the hospital for another 2 weeks. My brother and I had a trip planned, and since my father couldn't be home while we were away, I found a sitter for my 3 cats and dog to take care of them. Yesterday, when we were on our trip, my father suddenly announced that he was going home early. When he got home, he decided to send my pet sitter away and said that he and my grandmother, who came to take care of him while he was there, could take care of my animals themselves. Today, when I got back, I found out that this, quote, care meant that they locked my babies in a room with no food or access to the outside litter box. When I got home, I found my room covered in animal feces, mostly my bed, and 4 animals that hadn't had food or water for at least 24 hours. When I yelled at my father about it, he said that if my animals themselves are not smart enough not to poop and pee on a bed and take care of themselves, then they should be put down. My grandmother had been there all day and left this morning, and now me and my brother are supposed to be the ones to go buy food for my father and do all these things for him. But after what he said, I refused to do it. I'm not mad because of the poop stuff. With 4 animals, accidents happen sometimes. But I am mad because they were left hungry, and I'm mad because of what my father said. Would I be the butthole if I told my father that if he's not able to take care of himself, then according to his logic, he should be put down? As a side note, before we left for the trip, we washed all his bedding, cleaned his living room, and visited him 3 times in the hospital and brought him homemade food. This trip was for my graduation. He accuses me of not visiting him enough in the hospital and not making sure that he has everything he needs at home. For reference, I graduated from university last week and I work full-time. Edit with some more info. My pets are all okay now. Thank you all for your kind words. My dad has been alone with my pets before, and we have never had any problems. He says that he cared for them, but this is not the first time he has said something like this to me. I have all the pets in my name, and my dad can't take them to the vet without me. And he's not physically aggressive, so I know he won't harm them at least. I am still confused myself why he sent my sitter away, but hey, it is what it is now. My babies are okay, and I'm with them now. Now it's time to be one petty grunt. OP, I have a cat, and I would be absolutely livid if someone locked them in the room and they pooped and peed all over my bed. Pee is, like, I have a waterproof cover thing, but still, cat pee especially is so hard to get the smell out of almost anything. And then you have the added fact that that's like basically animal abuse. How did he expect these animals to care for themselves? When you lock them in a room, they don't have thumbs. They can't just let themselves out of the room, go get food, go get a snack, use the bathroom, and come back. That is a terrible thing to do. If he wasn't going to take care of them, why would he send the sitter away? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. He wasn't even paying for the sitter. So, like, how did that affect him in any way? I don't know, OP. But in any case, you're definitely not the butthole for wanting to say what you said. I probably would have said the same thing too, and I would have refused to take care of him the way he refused to take care of my animals for the rest of his stay there. Like, I really wonder how he would feel if, since you refused to take care of him, he hired a nurse to come take care of him 24/7, and then you came home, sent the nurse home because you said that you could take care of him yourself, and then instead locked him in a room by himself for 24 hours with no food and no bathroom. I'm not saying that you should do that. That's obviously a very extreme thing to do, but just saying, kind of the same concept. That was Reddit After Hours, bringing you r/Am I the Butthole. Thank you all so much for listening, and if you like these stories, like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below for any future Reddit subs that you'd like us to cover, as we post new Reddit videos almost every single day.